I have to say, I don't know what the requirements are to be part of this group, but sitting here this morning, when you guys get back in person, I can only imagine what your meetings are like. So if I can join, please let me know, because you guys are having me cracking up over here. So I've enjoyed my morning so far. Thank you. A little bit about me. So I've been here at Lantern Hill. I'm rounding out my 4th month here. However, I've been with Erickson Senior Living for the last 17 years. So I started at Ccrc, which is one of our sister communities in Pompton Plains. I started at 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school, picked up a little part-time job serving tables in one of the restaurants there. Really fell in love with the mission and the culture, and ultimately created a career out of it. So I moved into the sales office, worked my way through sales associate to sales manager at Ccrc, and given the opportunity to come here to New Providence, to Lantern Hill, several months ago as the sales director, and I'm glad to be here. So Alan had talked to me a little bit about kind of talking through some different housing options, right? So as people age, and maybe it's family, maybe it's for yourselves, people really don't know what's out there, or they don't know that much about what's out there. So I thought maybe I could help educate some different options as you age and as you're considering, hey, what is my next move? As we're meeting with people, we know that people have been in their home for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, sometimes 70 years. And it's kind of that what's next, and where do I begin? So I'm hoping to educate just a little bit on some of those different options there. So we'll go through some different housing options for older adults. The first one we'll talk about are called accessory apartments. You may hear them also referred to as mother-daughter homes. So it's kind of an add-on to a single-family home. It still creates that separate apartment within a home, and it has most or all features that a regular home or apartment would have. Typically, you have your own bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen, or kitchenette. It still provides that independence, but it also gives an added layer of security for an older adult who's living with an adult child. It can be economical, but of course, there's always a con to every different option. Sometimes it's difficult to construct just because of different zoning issues. We've also had cases in the past where we've met with people and we've heard that it definitely creates some family conflict with household members. So it may sound like a good idea at first, and then as we come to cohabitate together, you could have some of those family conflicts come up. So there's also the option of 55 plus communities. They are designed for active and independent older adults, just like Lantern Hill is designed for active adults as well. We're a little bit different because we are a continuing care retirement community, so we'll talk about that in just a few. But 55 plus communities, typically it's similar to living in a condo or townhome. Many times there's single family homes as well. So you do have a number of different construction types. Many people will make the move to a 55 plus as kind of their first step in downsizing. So coming from your larger, 4-bedroom, 3-bath home where you live now, you make that first step, you move into a single family home, which is typically a ranch style, 2-bedroom, 2-bath home in a 55 plus community. Typically you're still responsible for the upkeep in your home, monthly bills, electric, gas, cable, appliances, all the things that you're responsible for in your home now. But there's some services like landscaping and maybe some maintenance services available as well. 55 plus communities also typically have some kind of clubhouse space. Many times the residents there will take on different groups and activities, and there'll be some kind of activity. Many people are still working because it is, at 55 plus. Typically the age range there is 55 to 70 is where we see people moving in. And then there's usually some kind of pool, a little bit of common space there within the community. At a 55 plus, there's typically no medical or nursing services. So as I mentioned, that typically it's the first step for someone when they're downsizing. Then what we find is that people are stuck looking for that next step. So living at a 55 plus, we've been there for years and years, and as our health changes and our needs change, we need to now consider, hey, do I have to make a move again? And we'll see people coming in 75, 80 years old who now need another step. Typically there are homes available in these 55 plus communities pretty readily. If you look at Zillow and you look at certain different communities, you can see there's typically something listed. You do have ownership of the home there, so it is a deeded transaction. So you would be purchasing whether it's a condo, townhome, or single family home there, which is why you are responsible for all of the maintenance, the bills, and all of that on a monthly basis. As we talk about kind of that 55 plus, so I want to talk about continuing care retirement communities, also known as CCRCs. In New Jersey, CCRCs are not very well known. In some other markets, it's pretty much just the next step for most people. Most people are very educated on what a CCRC is, what a CCRC will offer. So Lantern Hill is a CCRC, and as I mentioned, it's called a continuing care retirement community. So what does that mean? We are a community that provides a continuum of care. So similar to a 55 plus, we do have an age requirement. So you would have to be 62 to move into a continuing care retirement community in the state of New Jersey. There are different guidelines by state. Some states are 60, 62, or 65. But we have that continuum of care. So the majority of the community at a CCRC will be independent living, right? So just as you do now, you have your own apartment, you have a full kitchen, full cooking range, full refrigerator, microwave, dishwasher, garbage disposal. And then there's typically a number of different floor plan options for you. Everything from 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, even 3 bedroom options. But the added part to a CCRC is that we have higher levels of care. So right on site, we have assisted living, and we'll also have skilled nursing services as well. So why do people choose to move to a CCRC? So we try to tell people, and we try to encourage people, instead of making that move to that 55 plus when you're 70, 75 years old, skip that step and make a move to a CCRC, because as we age and our needs change, and God forbid something happens and we need that additional level of care, you're not scrambling, your family's not scrambling for what is the next step. Everything is right there on site for you at that continuing care retirement community. Most CCRCs will require an entrance fee for the home to be paid upfront. There's a number of different refundable options depending on the community that you go to. So say you're moving into a community and you pay $400,000 for your apartment. Typically, and I can speak for Lantern Hill, that is a 90% refundable entrance fee. So if you ever decide to move out, or if you were to live your life out here, 90% of that would be refundable to you. Now, if you go to some other communities, as I mentioned, there's some different refund options. So you may find communities that have a 0% refundable option. Some have 50%, 80%, 90%, and others offer up to 100% refundable as well. Now, that's based off of their individual models. And typically, if there is more than one option, that entrance fee will vary depending on the option that you choose. There are two types of continuing care retirement communities. One is called a life care. The other is fee for service. At a life care community, you're paying a monthly fee, which is typically higher than a fee for service community. But you're paying a monthly fee based off of your future care needs. Right, so you're moving in and you're going to start paying, say you're paying $4,000 a month. You're going to start paying that and you're living independently, enjoying everything the community has to offer. And then your needs change and you need to move to assisted living or skilled nursing. And that could be, you could be living at that community for 10, 15 years at that point. In a life care community, moving to that higher level of care, your monthly fee is not going to change. So you're essentially paying for your future care needs. Whether or not you ever need that is unknown to all of us. At a fee-for-service community, you're paying a monthly fee for most services, and then you're paying an additional cost for only the things that you choose to. If you move from one level of care to another, then your monthly fee will change. So typically at a fee-for-service community, your monthly fee coming into independent living will be lower than a life care community, because you're not paying for that additional care or your future care needs right from the beginning. It is a contracted agreement. So when you move into a CCRC and you put that entrance deposit up front, it's not a deeded transaction. So you don't actually have ownership of your apartment at that community. What you're signing is actually, we call it a life lease. So typically, if you were renting just any kind of market rate apartment anywhere outside of a Ccrc, you typically have a lease term. So whether that be a short-term lease or a typical 12-month lease, 12 months comes up and you'd have to renew that contract at that time. What you're signing at a continuing care retirement community is a life lease. So that community is offering you a home for as long as you'd like to stay here. The actual contract that you sign, although it is for life, it is a service contract. So you are signing a contract with the community to provide certain services at that level of care for you. Most Ccrcs will have medical services at the community, or they're partnered with an outside medical department that you can use. There's a range of different services that you'll find depending on the community. Of course, there's clubhouses with pools, meeting rooms. Typically, at least one meal each day is included, or some type of meal plan. Transportation can be included. Security, so there are security and first responders on site, emergency pull cords, emergency personnel, everything right there at the community for you. And then, of course, we know one of the biggest reasons why people move to a continuing care retirement community, besides that additional care if they ever need it, is the clubs and activities. So we know that as we age, socialization is one of the most important things for people as they age. To help us keep our mind sharp, we know that we need to find people who are like us, and you want to move somewhere where people like you. So typically there's a good calendar full of different clubs and activities, similar to where we are today. A group of people who have common interests, who want to get together and talk and be friends. There are different options in the area. Lantern Hill is one Ccrc. Of course, there's Cranes Mill, which is in Caldwell, Fellowship Village in Basking Ridge, and Winchester Gardens in Maplewood. If you want to learn more about a continuing care retirement community, the state of New Jersey does have an organization called Orange, ORANJ. It's the Organization of Residents Associates of New Jersey, and it exists for the purpose of supporting, empowering, and bettering the life of senior citizens in New Jersey. They have a lot of good resources about different Ccrcs, different contract types, and kind of everything behind the scenes of things that you may need to consider. Of course, there's always subsidized apartments for the elderly as well. Since I'm new to the area, I don't know if New Providence itself does have a senior housing complex, but typically many townships and boroughs will have different types of senior housing available for senior citizens. They're typically rental units, garden apartments, sometimes high-rise apartments. Typically, you do have to be at least 62 years old or have a disability to be considered. There are income limitations to qualify for this type of housing, and the amount of rate is typically the amount of rent is typically based off of the household income. Again, being new to the area, I'm not sure exactly which towns or boroughs around this area offer senior housing, but there are some different resources that we can connect you with if that's something that is of interest to you. Of course, the final option is to stay right where you are today in your own home. There's a million reasons why. I think Alan and some others on the call can tell you why that's not the best option for you. The communal living really is what's going to keep us the healthiest the longest, right? So we're going to maintain an active lifestyle. We have a pool, there's a fitness center, all of our social groups, even just our different restaurant options. But of course, staying in your own home is definitely an option. Many people choose to stay in their single family home where they've been for, as I mentioned, the last 50, 60 years. And there are resources that you can use to bring additional help into your home should you need that. So definitely a wide range of different options to consider. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think that a continuing care retirement community is probably your number one option. And I'm happy to share Lantern Hill with you. Happy to share some different resources with you as well. Before I open it up to different questions or conversation, I do just have a quick video. It's just a quick apartment tour of one of our 2-bedroom apartments. If anyone has not been to Lantern Hill before, I thought it would be nice for you at least to take a look and get to see something that we have to offer. So give me just a minute as I pull this up.
If you want to know why you're so tired so often,
All right, so what we saw there was our Wentworth. That is a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath apartment. And typical of many communities, we do have a number of different options to choose from. Everything from an 800 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1.5-bath, up to about 1,900 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath with an extra den. So there really are, the options are pretty expansive. And we do have all of those here at the community to take a look at and to choose from. As I ran through some of these different options, does anybody have any questions or comments that I can talk through with you?
Yeah, okay. So Brian, thank you very much. Very nice presentation. I have several questions. I'll just rattle them off. Erickson's is a private company, is it not?
Erickson Senior Living is the management company for Lantern Hill. That is yes, they're a private company.
Yeah, and are there financials available? I looked, I couldn't find them. Are they available?
So you can find individual community financials, but you won't find anything posted for Erickson Senior Living.
I see. Okay. And can you do your own decoration? My wife is an interior decorator, and she'd want to spruce up some stuff, but you'd probably have to repaint it after we left. Or
yeah.
What's that deal?
Absolutely. So many people want to feel at home. So many people will do a lot of cosmetic changes. So whether it be paint, wallpaper, additions of different kind of custom work, which you can do. Typically you'll find someone that you work with or a contractor on your own to do some of those things for you. But you have absolutely, yes, you can do anything you'd like within the apartment home.
Yeah, and I presume there's an entrance physical.
So everyone goes through the same qualification moving into our community, at least. There's both a financial piece, so there's a financial qualification, and then what we consider the wellness piece. It's not actually medical, so there's no medical or physical that accompanies it. It's more so just a conversation with a member of our resident services team to make sure that you can live independently and safely on your own, and to see how we can support that transition for a new resident moving in.
Okay, so I guess for me, the most important aspect is the, as you say, the social. But you want to socialize with people that you have common interests with. I once visited an old professor of mine, and the whole place was full of professors. It was great. I mean, he was a musician. They had a symphony orchestra, but in Lantern Hill, it's more an open. I know many of the guys there, wonderful people. So you're lucky in that regard. But you don't seek socially, compatible people, do you?
So I think that because of our location here at Lantern Hill, we have people who have worked, in New York City in different various jobs and different backgrounds. There are people from all different backgrounds and walks of life. Our team here in the sales office, Kathy Banks, she's been here since the inception of Lantern Hill. So before we even broke ground, Carlos has been here a number of years as well. And we work with people for months and months and months and years moving in. So they know almost every single resident here, and we can pair people up. So if you came to visit with us and you were looking for somebody with a certain background or someone with similar interests to you, we can easily pair you up with people that we have here that have those similar interests to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Of course.
We have a question in the chat room. Are any of the apartments furnished, or are pets allowed?
Sure. So I'll answer the furnished one first. So all of our apartments, you would actually furnish it yourself. So you're gonna bring your belongings from home where you live now, or some people do choose to buy new, but you would furnish that yourself. Again, similar to Bill's question, we want you to feel comfortable, want you to feel like home. And a lot of that security, a lot of that comfortable feeling comes from being surrounded by the things that you love the most. The second question for pets, yes, our community here at Lantern Hill, we are pet friendly. You'll see a number of people walking throughout the courtyards and the grounds here, walking their dogs, and then many people, of course, have their indoor pets as well, cats and the such.
Erickson?
Yeah, hi, Brian. First of all, with respect to the video, the Wentworth, is that sort of a high or a medium or a low price point for Lantern Hill?
So the Wentworth is one of our largest apartments, so that is at the top range.
Okay, very good. And do the magic doors come with all of the apartments? I really
We can
want
arrange for it.
those.
If you want it, we can arrange for it.
I
I
love
was
the
wondering
magic
if there was a
doors.
ghost.
And in terms of moving in, a couple of things. First of all, is a zero meal option available at Lantern Hill?
So not at Lantern Hill, and that's typical for a continuing care retirement community. There is some kind of meal plan option. Whether that be, some places have, one meal every day is included. You can choose to do breakfast,
Okay.
lunch, dinner. Here at Lantern Hill, we have what we call our choice account, which is like a declining balance. So you have a certain dollar amount to use throughout the month. So you can use that on any of our meals in any of our restaurants. You can use that for friends and family. But there is the meal plan aspect to it.
Okay, thank you. And one final thing, which probably we'll talk about later, is I think it would be good for our group to get something on, well, two things. One's decluttering, getting rid of all of your stuff, and secondly is planning all of your finances and electronic records and stuff. And so maybe we'll talk about whether or not you guys have people there that have that expertise, and maybe we could have somebody come and talk to us, because one of the big things in terms of moving into any of these options, except for the stay at home, is what do you see behind me? Okay, what do we do with all that stuff, And we all got that problem, and we also got all the problems of when somebody dies, how do you access their records, their will, their and what do you do with the 800,000 phone pictures that are on everybody's computer? So anyway, another time, another day, but thank you so much. And we'll get on to other questions.
Yeah, Mitch, I do want to point out, so to that point, I mean, many of our customers are in that same spot. Like you said, look behind me, right? What do I do with this stuff? Where does it all go? What happens? We're finding that adult children, they don't want your fancy silverware. They don't want your dining room set. They don't want the china cabinet, all of that. So something
The only thing they want is our bank account.
Something unique to Erickson is we have what we call Erickson Realty and Moving Services. And we do have our personal moving consultant who actually will come to your home and they kind of help you come up with a plan for all of that, right? So where do we start? What do we do first? And then kind of what happens with all of this stuff. So I do think it would be great if we could schedule a time to have maybe our personal moving consultant join us and kind of help walk through some of those things too.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Ed Atkin?
Can you tell us what the cost factors are for like various options?
Yeah, so I can speak to.
I promised my mother, basically.
I'm sorry?
I promised my mother, she's 88, she's temporarily staying in Brighton Gardens.
Okay. Yeah, so of course, there's going to be different options, as I mentioned. So a continuing care retirement community will have the two financial pieces, both that upfront fee and then the monthly service fee as well. The monthly service fee will include basically all the monthly living expenses. So taxes, gas, water, electric, heat, air conditioning, all that's included in that one fee. As we talked about, different subsidized apartments. So different townships have different options, and that's based off of someone's household income. So you would provide them with the financial status of the person moving in, and then they would determine the rent based off of that. Of course, affordable housing, boarding houses, things like that. Those are all some different options as well.
You can't give us like a dollar amount in general. That's what
I mean, I can for Lantern Hill. So for Lantern Hill, Our entrance fees will start at about 440,000. And the monthly fee starts right around 4,500 per month. Again, that upfront fee is 90% refundable. So should you decide to move out, or if you live your life out here, 90% of that is refundable to you or beneficiaries of your choosing. And then that monthly fee, it does have that meal plan aspect. It also includes all of those monthly living expenses as well.
In that 4,500 range, right?
Correct.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got two questions in the chat box. And they're both related. How many units, including brand new units, are there? And there is heard that Lantern Hill is building more buildings on the former BOC property. Is that true?
So we are a total of 443 apartments. That is including our newest building, which is the Bell Pavilion, which opened in late 2019. So total of 443 right now. We are working through zoning and approvals and permitting for the former Lindy site. We did purchase that property. We do plan on expanding to that area as well.
Great. Alejo?
There was some discussion a few years ago of how long does it take to get your upfront feedback, or for your estate to get the upfront feedback. What is the situation with the return of the upfront fee? How is there a limit on how long it would take your estate to get that back?
Great question. So, well, there's not a limit on how long it takes. I will tell you, on average here at the community, it takes about 6 to 9 months. As I mentioned, we have a refund account set up here. So as we're selling apartments, money is going into that account, and then we're paying people out based on the queue. So on average here at the community, it's about 6 to 9 months.
But there was some talk of having a law saying that it had to be refundable in a certain period of time. What is the status of that state law?
So there was legislation that was drawn up a number of years ago that does have some parameters on that. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know where that landed, or I haven't heard that it actually was ever signed. But that group that I mentioned, which is Orange, ORANJ, they do a lot of lobbying for protections for Ccrc residents.
Thank you.
Paul?
Oh, yes. I've eaten there a number of times. Very nice cafeteria, great food. And I was there because a good friend of my wife's, they're in Summit College Club together, and we have kind of a gourmet luncheon. Now it's a luncheon group. So she would invite us all over there, and we'd have a couple tables pulled together and sort of a lunch party. So there's a lot of non-residents coming to a luncheon party. So I don't remember who paid for that, but I probably did on that occasion. So I presumably it's possible for a resident to, have some friends over for lunch and let them pay for themselves. And by the way, maybe somebody from Old Guard will make that offer to some Old Guardians one of these days, if that's feasible.
Yeah, so we have 3 restaurants on site. As I mentioned, our residents do have a certain dollar amount that they can spend throughout the month. They can use that for themselves. They can use that for their guests. Their guests can also, like, as you mentioned, they can pay their own way as well.
Yeah.
But just like your home now, your guests are always welcome anywhere here at the community.
By the way, I misspoke. It was not cafeteria. It was service, and it was very nice. The servers are very pleasant and fun.
Thank you.
Harvey?
Thank you. As a person goes through their continuing infirmities, let's say they get sicker or they need more help, do they have to move out of their apartment into a different section of Lantern Hill?
So, common question. So most people will move into a continuing care retirement community independently, and they'll live out their life most times in their independent living home. So you're never forced to move to a higher level of care. Typically, that's a personal and family decision. Many people find that they can supplement the care or bring in the care that they need into their independent living apartment.
Thank you, Brian. For the Wentworth apartment, the one that you showed in the video, what is the upfront fee and what would be the monthly fee for a husband and wife who happen to be residing in the Wentworth?
So the Wentworth will range right about 975,000 for the upfront cost. And then the monthly fee will take you right about 7,500 per month for 2 people.
Jim Blaine?
Yes, my question is, if you need to move from the individual into an assisted living, so you have to pay an extra fee, how is that figured out? What would that be like?
So if you move to a higher level of care, you're not paying an additional upfront fee. The monthly cost is what would change. So based on the amount of hands-on care that you need, that monthly fee would be determined. So it would be increased from what you're paying in independent living, and that's based off of your care needs at that point.
So that's some medical assessment is done to determine what kind of assistance you need.
At that point, yes. So if you're moving to assisted living or skilled nursing, there is a full assessment done by one of our nurses there in the continuing care center to determine those needs.
Can you give some idea of what that's like based on some typical situation?
So monthly cost for a higher level of care will start at about 10,000 per month.
Okay.
And again, that's going to be determined by exactly how much care you need.
So is that 10,000 in addition to the other, or is that just instead of whatever you were paying?
Instead of.
Okay.
Bill
Thank
Tittle?
you.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question. It's not really a question, it's a suggestion for your consideration. The old guard, we have typically 100 people at a meeting. And so we need a fairly sizable space to meet. And I don't think Lantern Hill has anything of that size. But in your expansion at BOC, you might consider adding a room of that sort. I know that Fellowship Village, for example, they put in a whole auditorium for concerts and whatnot. So you might want to not go that far, but then your residents could have, parties, family parties and whatnot. Have you given that any thought?
Yeah, so we do have a number of different spaces at the community now. As you mentioned, none that are quite that large. In the plan for our second neighborhood, we do have a life enrichment center, which will be it'll be capacity of almost 200 people. And it'll kind of be a multi-purpose space. So we do have something in the works for that.
Would you welcome the old guard to have meetings there?
Yeah,
on a regular basis, once a week.
Yep. So I know Paul and I had talked about that a little bit earlier last week, and my team here. If we can find a space to accommodate all of you, we would love to host you on a regular basis for sure.
Great.
Mike Katz? You have to mute.
I've done, yeah. If someone is in assisted living and has a stroke or heart attack and then requires skilled nursing, what happens if Lantern Hill doesn't have any skilled nursing beds available at that time?
So typically our census allows for us to have some kind of availability there. If we don't have the immediate availability, we do have partnerships with different facilities within the area here, where you can go for a respite stay as you wait for a room to open up in our continuing care center here.
Would the cost of that be paid by Lantern Hill, or how would that work?
It would not. So instead of paying that respite fee to Lantern Hill, you would pay whichever facility that you were staying at for the short term.
Okay, thank you.
Paul?
I assume that most independent residents have cars and you've got parking garages and the like. But is there public transportation up there on the hill?
So
and if so, to where?
Yeah, so many of our residents do still drive, as you mentioned, but we do have a schedule of regular transportation trips. We'll go to a number of different area conveniences here, different shopping areas, Short Hills Mall. I have it right here in front of me, actually.
So that's a Lantern Hill van that takes you, as opposed to a New Jersey Transit bus that comes nearby, right?
Yep, we have our own buses, our own drivers. So we will go down, obviously, New Providence, we'll do the Acme, Central Market, Barth's, CVS, those things. Then we go down to Blue Star Shopping Center, Short Hills Mall. And then there are some other different options that would be a fee to get to. But we do have, for example, Murray Hill Station, Summit Train Station, Overlook Hospital, things like that.
So if a bunch of Oakard members who are residents needed a ride to Oakard, could they ask for that? And would the van be available for that?
So they can arrange any of their transportation needs with our General Services Department. It is for private trips like that, it would be a fee for service. So there would be a small nominal fee attached to that.
Mark Pincus?
Yes, thank you. I want to follow up on what Ed Atkin asked, and some of the people in the chat room have asked about the finances. You mentioned the $440,000 entrance fee and the $4,000 a month, $4,500 a month. I assume that that's the low entry. That's like a one apartment. What is the typical entry fee and maintenance for, say, a 2-bedroom, fairly sized? And also, it's my understanding that in Florida, for example, I know a lot of people in Boynton Beach or at Discovery Village or West Palm Beach at Tradition, they don't pay any entry fee. My mother-in-law was one of them. And not only that, they pay the same $4,000 a month. They get virtually the same things that Lantern Hill offers. And if they need higher level care, they can go to the assisted living part. Tradition, for example, is hooked into Morse Life. And if they need that, Medicare pays all of that, which happened to my mother-in-law when she transferred to assisted living. So what does Lantern Hill offer for the $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 entry fee that these other places don't offer? And does New Jersey have that type of facility like Traditions? I'm sure you're familiar with them because they compete with your Erickson Living Place in Palm Beach Gardens.
Yeah, so there's a number of different options, of course, with continuing care. Typically, there isn't an entrance fee required. I don't know of a contract type where there is no entrance fee. Like you mentioned, there's no upfront cost. It's just that monthly fee. Typically, there is some kind of entrance fee that's required. So I'm not familiar with that type of contract. But in most CCRCs, it's the 90% or the refundable entrance fee, and then that monthly cost as well. It sounds like your mother-in-law had most of the same services that we offer as well for that monthly fee. Of course, depending on the market and location, that monthly fee is gonna differ.
Roger Burns?
Yes, I have two questions. First, does Erickson offer any transitional assistance with selling your existing home in order to have the funds to come into Erickson, such as a bridge loan or that type of thing? And second question would be, assuming you pass the financial and physical requirements to get in, and you're there 2-3 years and you're unable to continue to pay the monthly fee, is there a legacy fund that provides for that person to stay there, or are they asked to leave?
Yeah, so two really great questions. As I mentioned before, we have what we call Erickson Realty and Moving Services. So every one of our communities has a personal moving consultant. Essentially what their job is to take care of all of those pieces of getting you from your house now to your new home here. Part of that is working with a network of preferred realtors, movers, downsizers, senior move managers, all of that, to help you get your house ready and listed and sold. because we know that a good chunk of that entrance fee that most people will pay here is coming from the sale of the home. And then remind me again of your second question.
Well, the second question would be, what happens if the individual is unable to continue to make the monthly payments 2 or 3 years down the road?
Sure. So Lantern Hill is a not-for-profit community, and part of that is because of our benevolent care fund. So once someone financially qualifies to move into Lantern Hill, what we're doing is we are promising them a home for life. So if they were to exhaust all of their other assets at no fault of their own, of course, they have that upfront deposit that they've paid to us, which they can spend that down first to help them maintain their lifestyle here. And then after that, we have our resident care fund, which is fundraised and funded by our residents here on site. But then that would help someone to maintain their lifestyle here. So no one would ever be asked to leave because of their financial inability.
Very good. Thank you.
Alan?
One comment that was made about Medicare participating, even at Lantern Hill, Medicare will participate. And if you have, and I suspect more than a few of you do have long-term care, that also helps to assuage some of those costs. And depending on the plan or plans that you have, that will follow you to wherever you go. And that goes into when you consider moving to an independent living facility that offers what Lantern Hill or any of the other independent living opportunities are, you should look at that. And so at least it helps to round out the picture. And there are a whole lot of considerations, and what you really should look at is some personal financial planning. And I'm sure you all have objective resources to go to that can help you. I would encourage you not to do it the subjective way, but in an objective manner. That's my comment.
David Bettersher, do you have a question?
Well, thank you for your excellent presentation. I want to follow up on your monthly meal allocation. I understand that you have a monthly meal allocation under the reduced plan, or at least that's an option. And so my question is, at the end of the month, if one doesn't spend all of the allocation, can that re-roll over to the following month?
It's a great question. So the monthly dining option here, so you have $450 per month to spend on dining. As I mentioned, that can be used for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It can be used for yourself and your guests. Unfortunately, it does not roll over month to month, so that $450 needs to be spent within that month. Most of our residents find it typically works in their favor. Again, whether they invite guests, family to enjoy, to help spend some of that. But for some people, at the end of the month, they're enjoying 3 meals a day and they don't have to do any of the cooking.
Thank you.
Bill Tittle?
Right, yeah. You intrigued me with your comment that Lantern Hill is a nonprofit organization, but you're affiliated with Erickson. Do you contract stuff out to them to do this estimate? I mean, they were a profit-making organization.
Mm-hmm. So Erickson Senior Living is a management company. They manage 21 different communities across the country. So Lantern Hill has a contract with Erickson Senior Living to manage the community. But all the communities that Erickson manages are their own entities. So Erickson Senior Living is a for-profit, and all of our communities are not-for-profit communities.
Okay, thank you.
Rich Jager?
Yes, thank you. Wanted to go back to what you were saying about when more medical care is needed. It sounded as though you were saying that if you're in independent living, but you need a higher level of medical care, you can choose to stay in the apartment that you have in independent living and get that additional level of medical care. Want to see is that completely true, or do you have the possibility of needing a level of medical care that then requires you to move to a different location, different apartment within Lantern Hill?
Of course, every situation is different. Some people do prefer to stay in their independent living home, and they will manage their care coming in from outside agencies, and they'll manage that for as long as they can. If you become, a safety hazard to yourself or to others in the community, that is one of the only times where we would step in and say, you can no longer live independently. You'd have to make a move to a higher level of care at this point.
So I'm thinking if you did move to another apartment for a higher level of medical care, then depending on whether you have a life plan or the fee for service, you would either continue your monthly fee, or you'd have to increase it if you had chosen the fee for service plan. If you had people coming in, if you were arranging your own medical care in your independent living apartment, I assume that would be something that you would have to arrange for and pay for yourself. Is that right?
Correct. So if you're managing your own care in your independent living home, that's something that you or your family are going to have to manage, and it can become quite tricky. There's a lot of moving parts that go to it. Of course, we do have resources here that can help guide you along the way. We have social workers and on site. We have a dedicated medical center here on site at the community that can help guide some of those things, but there's no one that's going to be overseeing or managing that care for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mike Cassidy again?
I think someone mentioned, if I understood correctly, that if someone moves to a higher level of care, such as skilled nursing, that Medicare would pay for it. My understanding, generally speaking, Medicare only covers actual medical expenses and not room and board.
That's correct. So Medicare would help. So if you were, say you were hospitalized and you came back to the community and you had inpatient rehab, Medicare will cover a certain amount of time for you to stay in rehab and to recover. If you're on a higher level of care like assisted living or skilled nursing, Medicare does not cover those services. And since we are a private pay facility, those would be out of pocket. Now, if there are other communities where Medicaid could come in, and Medicaid could help cover some of those costs.
Rich?
Yeah, we keep talking money, so I'm going to change the topic a little bit here. Okay, I sign a contract today with you guys. What's the average move-in time from the time we sign the contract until you're all comfy there and you got everything all set and you're sleeping there?
So if you were to decide to reserve an apartment with us today, although you're not actually signing a contract with us today, that doesn't happen until you are physically moving in.
Okay.
You can reserve an apartment with us, and that's going to kind of start the clock on you getting ready for your move. So typically it's between 60 and 90 days when someone from reserving to actually moving into the community and enjoying everything that the community can offer.
Okay, thanks. That's exactly what I wanted to know.
Yeah, perfect.
Poppy?
Suppose I have a 2-bedroom place in Lantern Hill, and my daughter, who works in New York, but mainly sometimes stays with us. Can she stay with us?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, so this is just like living in your own home now. Your guests can come and go as they please. We usually tell people you'll probably get sick of your guests before we will. So yes, they can stay overnight. They can dine in our restaurants. They can use our fitness center. Everything that's open and available to you is open to your guests as well.
And what about you said that you take care of selling my house, is that right?
So what we do is we have a network of preferred realtors that we work with. So realtors that have sold for other residents who have moved here that we know are going to list at the right price, and they're going to get your home sold. So we connect you with those resources. We have someone in our office who's dedicated to kind of bridging the gap between those services that you need and getting here.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ron Hoke?
Good. I'm a resident at Lantern Hill. I just wanted to add a little bit to some of the questions that were asked before. If a person has to move from independent living for any reason, there are 4 choices under what we call continuing care. One choice is assisted living. Another choice is memory care. That's a separate section. And the other 2 choices are in the skilled nursing section. One choice is for temporary rehabilitation. That's an option that many residents use who have had surgery or something along those lines at a hospital and need to have rehab for a while before they can return to their apartments. That's another option, and it's a very valuable option. Many residents here have used that, and it's a very convenient way because they're located just a few steps from their apartment. And if their spouse is still here in the apartment, it makes it very easy for the spouse to go back and forth between rehab and their apartments. And then the final skilled nursing option is continuing care for those who need something on the order of continuing 24-hour per day care, similar to what you get in a nursing home. Thank you.
Okay, and for that last question, we'll go to Steve Varley.
Brian, I know you have a waiting list or reserve list at Lantern Hill. Could you tell me how many people are on that list and what kind of turnover it typically has, let's say, within a year's time?
Yeah, so we do have apartments available now. What you're referring to is actually our priority list. So our priority list is, again, it's like a wait list. Essentially, people are putting down a $1,000 deposit to say, hey, you know what, I think that Lantern Hill could be my home in the future. Whether that means next month, later this year, 5 years from now. I think that Lantern Hill, I will call Lantern Hill home one day. We have about 400 people on our priority list in various different stages of, hey, I'm ready in a month from now, I'm ready in 5 years from now. The benefit is that we have a number of different events just for priority list members here at the community. So you get to kind of meet your one day to be neighbors. But more than that, you have first right of refusal as apartments become available. You have first right of refusal over anyone who joins the priority list after you.
And what kind of churn or turnover would you get out of that list in a typical year?
So it depends. Again, so as I mentioned, some people are at that stage where they're a month away. Some people are years away. Some people skip that step completely, where they come in and they don't join the priority list, but they end up just going right to reserving an apartment. This year, we're on track to sell 65 apartments this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Ellen?
Brian, I want to thank you very much. I think you have done a really good job in explaining the options of the different caring communities, and certainly opened the door for many for additional questions. Not all of them have been asked. Everyone has a different perspective on their futures and how they are going to meet those futures. And I could only encourage you, the other members of the old guard, to seek out more information, not just from Lantern Hill, but on the whole concept so that you really understand it. You know, years ago, Cy Sim said, the best customer is an educated customer. And one of the things that we need to do is to do our own research rather relying on the responses that we get from other individuals. That's only a help. Personally, I think it was a very good decision. I'm glad I'm here. Nothing is perfect, but this is, in my wife and I, for us, this is the closest thing to perfection. So from our planning perspectives. So Brian, thank you. And I want you to know that coming to you will be an orchid certificate. You said you hadn't been in this, you're not too familiar with this area, but Summit many years ago was the orchid capital of New Jersey. So we have adopted the symbol of an orchid certificate, and I will be happy to be delivering that to you soon. And I don't think it's a long walk to your office. So
You find your way here quite often.
yeah, I know I do, and I'm only hoping the cookies come back, Brian. That, you know, having
I'm working
lollipops
on
out
it.
there doesn't do it for me. All right, but thank you, Brian. You're a good guy, and you have, in my personal opinion, a great team. Jonathan, Kathy Banks, and Carlos, and Liz, and Matt. You know, so I'm a happy guy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everyone, so much for having me. Hopefully, I've answered some of those questions for you. Our community is always open, so if you have a chance to come by and visit us, we're happy to take some time to talk with you.
Thank you.
I'll see you.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay.
The old guard salute.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I'll clap when I come to your office.
And Brian, if we were in person, we'd all stand up. It's an excuse for us to stand up and then shake our bones before we get out of the
Appreciate
room.
that.
So anyway, thank you very much.